Well, Mike, it's Thursday. That must mean it's time to do LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook Live. How are you?
It's good, good. We're live, which is better than being, the other thing.
I
So,
suppose that's true. And we're coming up on a holiday here. And one thing to
mm,
know about holidays is, well, if you remember back to last year, there were a lot of attacks on holidays. So,
yep, yep.
make sure your sock has your back over the holiday. I know our sock is working 24/7 for folks as they always do, and get ready.
In fact, wasn't it right around Memorial Day when it was both Colonial Pipeline, which affected 45% of the fuel supply for the East Coast, and JBS Meats, so you couldn't drive or barbecue on Memorial Day, and that's hitting Americans right where they live.
Yep.
Mhm.
And today, for the most part, we're going to talk about China because a lot has happened in the last 24, 48 hours with China. A couple of quick notes. Number one is we have a couple of panels coming up. And one of them is about Mike's budgeting tool as it relates to NIST and aligning yourself with NIST. Go to criticalinsight.com, click on events, and sign up for those events if you want to come. Also, there's no security awareness training this week because Memorial Day. So next one is on the 9th. All right,
Right.
Mike, China, big deal. What happened?
All right, so for like a little bit of a backdrop. So a week, 10 days ago, something like that, there was an article in the Blast that said malware turns home routers into proxies for Chinese state-sponsored hackers. Okay,
Mm-hmm,
this was a week or 2 weeks ago or something like that. Okay, which
mm-hmm,
just as a story, it's like, oh, wow, okay, what are they going to do with that? Well, now we know.
mm-hmm,
So big news out today, both from Microsoft, the NSA put out a bulletin on this, CISA put out a bulletin on this. And what they say is China is in U.S. critical infrastructure. This is a huge story. There's a great quote from Microsoft in there. Microsoft assesses with moderate confidence, and they're calling it Volt Typhoon because that's what we do, I guess. Volt Typhoon campaign is pursuing development of capabilities that could disrupt critical communications infrastructure between the United States and Asia during future crises. Okay, so that is an assessment, but I want to offer something competing, and you and I have talked about it before. So first of all, it's not just China in U.S. infrastructure; they're also using home routers that have been compromised as command and control. So the article about malware turns home routers into proxies, hey, it looks like that was really true, and they've really done that, and they've done it at scale.
mm-hmm.
So there's that. All right. Now, another thing just happened in Guam, and I don't have a lot of details on this, but apparently they hit Guam pretty hard, and there's some speculation by the New York Times that Taiwan may have been the actual target. I don't think China is going to get confused between the difference between Guam and Taiwan. No. So again, this they think this is about disrupting communications between ourselves and Asian countries who are our allies. Okay.
But I mean, isn't the idea that if China wanted to attack Taiwan, that the U.S. would be able to launch a counteroffensive, likely from Guam, and that this would
Possibly.
disrupt the communications around that? Isn't that? I mean, that's what I read.
Stands to reason, right? And we know this Taiwan thing is getting pretty hot. What's going on in the South China Sea? But there's another thing: China and Kenya. All right, article today. So, what China has done is right on brand for them. Okay, you know that they have this tactic of loaning money to countries. And if the countries default on those loans, China can take over resources in the country, mines, stuff like that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, what China has been stealing from Kenya is information on their outstanding loans, likely to estimate where there are economic vulnerabilities that they can exploit to create that default condition and take over those country resources. Okay. So, like, these guys are playing hardball and a long game here. Then this one's about, I don't know, 10 days old too, right? U.S. Department of Transportation had a massive security breach and 237,000 federal employee records were lifted. All right. Also during solar winds, China had a particular targeting for employee records in the federal government and a whole bunch of federal agencies. All right. So why are they amassing all of these records? There's OPM, there's Equifax, there's all these records that never showed up. Okay. Now they got to process all the data, just like if they're stealing something from Kenya and they're looking for where are the economic vulnerabilities that we can exploit, right? They're going to have to expose that to some processing, and maybe that's just manual, people reading through stuff. But I don't think so, because China has this capability of doing real-time facial recognition all over the country. They can check your social score before you go into a restaurant, right? And that's massive computing power behind that. Well, if they bring that massive computing power to bear on all these records they've stolen, not only can they define the path to get to an asset that they want in government, right? Somebody that would work for them. But, when records are stolen and they're used for financial fraud, that's irritating, that's annoying. If it happens at scale to everybody at once, the chaos is going to be unbelievable. All right. So they continue, there's espionage, there's theft of intellectual property. They're not stealing these records on people to monetize them. There's another purpose for that. And that's the shoe I think is going to drop sometime. So, I'll also say that I have hit their radar. So, these interpretations of events that you and I have been doing have clearly hit a nerve.
Mm-hmm.
So, I showed you 47,000 login failures for me over the course of a couple of weeks, coming from all over the world. It was about every 6 seconds there for a while. All right. There's that.
That's a problem with having your name in Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal.
Well, the other thing, it's these LinkedIn profiles that are trying to really cozy up to me, right? It's, some picture of some young Asian woman who's giving me her phone number. Hey, we should just talk. It's like, no, I'm not going to talk to you. In fact, I sent her an article about North Koreans using these profiles to get after security researchers and said, interesting article, don't you think? Then she didn't come back. So, yeah. So, a lot of our focus is on Russia a lot. And it really is. And this is exactly what the federal government says. China's the problem. And this bit about what they're doing with records has got me nervous.
Yeah, and and for sure, finding out, from Microsoft that, they got in through these Fortinet devices, it's disconcerting. And I know that, when we talk to our customers, our customers are focused on ransomware, which is not what is generally coming from the Chinese government or these China attackers. But certainly shows a giant capability there, and the ability to get into US infrastructure that's really unsettling.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will we'll be back next week. We'll see you on next Thursday. We hope that you have an awesome Memorial Day, and thanks, everybody.
And we hope that you patch your home routers and you're not helping China attack US infrastructure. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.